So a lot of you guys have heard of the allegory of the cave. I kind of wanted to go over this a little bit, not as really a philosophy, but a lived experience in my life and how it kind of has unfolded and some of the mechanics behind it, because I think it's actually a really simple yet important illustration of how the awakening process can feel inside your being as you learn more and more the depths of yourselves through self-inquiry, through spirituality, whatever practice that you are entertaining at the time. The allegory of the cave is actually a really simple and effective means of explaining this process. So in the cave, imagine there's a bunch of people that have lived there since their birth and they know nothing else. And they're facing a wall. And behind them there's a fire. And between the prisoners, or the people that are in the cave, and the fire behind, between them, there are a bunch of objects going back and forth that are projecting shadows onto the wall in front of the prisoners. For the people in the fixed position, and these people cannot turn their heads, they're just facing the wall like this with the fire behind them and the objects going back and forth. The shadows themselves are reality. They name these things, they argue about them, they build identities around them, and because everybody agrees on what they're seeing, there's no reason to really question it, okay? This is what we call consensus reality. And that's the general makeup, the mechanisms of this cave. Now, the cave isn't ignorance in the way that we usually think about it. It's a conditioning. It's inherited frameworks that we never learned to choose, but we learned to survive in because we didn't know any different. And this matters, because at some point, prisoner is freed. They leave the fixed position. Okay, and by leaving the fixed position, what they do is they stand up and they actually turn around and they look at the fire itself. And at first, the fire burns their eyes. It's too much. And then the objects that are going back and forth, whoa, those are really, really confusing. And he resists. He wants to go back. The shadows that once were his reality were very familiar. They made sense, and they gave him orientation. This is to say that truth doesn't come to us as clarity at first. It's often very, very disorienting. And so it doesn't just stop there. Eventually, the prisoner is dragged out of the cave and into the sunlight, and at first, that too is absolutely unbearable. The sun is way too much, too bright, too exposing. But slowly, what happens is as he becomes acclimated to the brightness, he eventually gets to see trees, water, people, animals, buildings, cities, and all of the things that are happening. And finally, the sun itself. He gets to look at and observe and contemplate the sun itself and what it is. The realization then dawns. The shadows weren't false inside the cave. They were more so incomplete. They were part of a bigger picture that this prisoner didn't have access to before moving and adjusting his perceptual perspective. And now another important part. The prisoner returns to the cave. And the prisoner can't really see that well in the dark because his eyes are acclimated to the light. The others don't listen to him when he tells the stories of what he's seen outside of their fixed positions. They mock him. They say he's confused. Some versions of the story actually imply that they kill him because he threatens the only reality that they know. And so Plato is pointing to something very important here and deeply uncomfortable. We don't resist truth because we're lazy. We resist it because our identity, our belonging, and our sense of safety are organized around the shadows. For most of us, they are organized around the shadows of appearance within the context of this metaphorical cave. And obviously the cave isn't a literal cave. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's relational. It's the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, the assumptions we make about others, the meanings we assign without ever questioning where they came from. The prisoner doesn't escape because he's special. He escapes because something inside him can no longer tolerate the shadows. He can no longer tolerate just the existence and the appearance of the shadows without understanding why they are there. That dissatisfaction, that fog, the restlessness, the quiet depression, the sense that something isn't right, but I don't know what, it's not really a failure. It's the first kind of turning of the head and recognizing, oh, there is something going on here that I wasn't aware of. But there's a hard truth that comes with that. And once you start turning, it can be difficult to see the cave clearly from inside of it. Not because we're incapable, but because the nature of the cave itself is to make it feel as though it is reality in and of itself, And if you don't step outside of it, the awareness that you are is not accessible to the mechanisms that are producing or supporting the awareness itself. And so that is where it can be beneficial to talk to somebody that's actually gone through that process, who has stepped outside, someone who knows what it's like to have perception reorganized within their own experience, and someone who recognizes the mechanisms by which reality is filtered, reinforced, and defended. The outside world from the cave is already happening, even if you spend the rest of your life inside the cave and just look at the shadows. Everything is happening simultaneously. The question is do you want to realize that in yourself and in the world? I work with people who sense that there's something in their perception is shifting, who want to understand how reality is being constructed in their experience without pathologizing themselves or tearing themselves apart. The most important thing is, not leaving the cave. It's learning to how to see the cave as the cave, because we're never really leaving the situation that we're in. We just need to see what it is. And we do this without shame, we do this without force, we do this without pretending that the shadows are the sun. We actually give our space to see reality for what it is by allowing the intelligence within us to emerge in its own time. So if you're interested in that work, I'm free for a call, and I appreciate you watching this video. Alright guys, you have a great one. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.